Hello lovely Sagittarius, which is my sign, so we're the best. This is the 2026 horoscope, which is super exciting. And for this video, I'm going to take you through the key themes of the new year, a reflection on 2025. I'm going to talk about the most important 2026 transits. I'm also going to talk about the change of nodes and rank the months based on what I think is most important for which topic. I'm also going to do a very brief flick through of the months and talk about the eclipses to end the video. I'm not going to be very in-depth in this video. I'm not going to talk about every single full and new moon, for example, because I do actually have a PDF on my website that I'm selling that talks about the best strategic aspects for the year. It includes every single full and new moon, how that will impact you, but also, the themes of the moon based on what the previous moon was. And also they are split into two sections, so money, self-development and career, and then hobbies, travel and love as well. I have a PhD in strategic advantage, so I'm picking everything based on what I think is going to give you the advantage for the year. Just before I begin as well, I'm gearing this horoscope towards a Sagittarius rising and ascendant. So if you're watching as a Sag sun but you're a Cap rising, for example, then the houses will not be accurate. But you can watch as a Sag sun if you're an older Sagittarius or you resonate with Sagittarius more. You can also watch for your ambitions and your goals, and you can watch as a Sagittarius moon for your mood and feelings, but it's basically at your own discretion that you know that the houses will not be accurate for you. So let's begin with the key themes for Sagittarius. So we're going to have a rumination on creativity, maybe a little bit of trauma over children or the inner child, and expression when Chiron stays in Aries. It's been there for quite some time, but it'll actually move into Taurus this year, in which your duties, sense of fulfillment and physical health will be a little bit more triggered. So Chiron, which is the wounded healer, it's the asteroid of, basically trauma. It will basically get you to go inward and address trauma and triggers in the area of duty, fulfillment, physical health, maybe stretching yourself too thin, that kind of thing. You also have sudden changes with physical health, work environment, and maybe even commitments with Uranus in Taurus. It's moved from Gemini back into Taurus, and then it will go back into Gemini. So we have a lot of in and out, in and out. And then, of course, Uranus in Gemini will hit your commitments and relationships in your 7th house as well. And Uranus does not discriminate. So this can be either good or bad, depending on what is aspecting in your chart. So just be mindful of that. You also have luck with investments and intimacy, with Jupiter in the 8th house with Cancer. But Jupiter in the 8th house is not really the best house for it to be in, so you might also find that you have an expansion of losing something, or if you do get intimacy or a bond with somebody, there's difficulty there. So I always say that Jupiter in the 8th, I'm going to get this next year. So I'm like, not that interested in having this, thank you. But it can be really good for investments and savings, but it can also be an expansion of a personal transformation that can also be a bit difficult. But it's going to be much better when Jupiter moves into Leo in the summer, June the 30th, because that's going to be in your 9th house, which is where Jupiter belongs, its domicile. So that's going to bring travel, spirituality, and you're going to feel a bit, just emboldened. You're going to feel right, feel like I'm at home actually. Then you're going to be aligning with speaking your truth, building a connection, and also releasing issues with purpose and sense of freedom when the North Node moves from Pisces to Aquarius and the South Node from Virgo to Leo as well. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Also, we have some reoccurring themes from 2025 because we have Pisces and Virgo eclipses yet again. So you're going to be aligning with family and a sense of home, and then maybe rebalancing career, or if you're retired, for example, a need for validation and the way you're expressing yourself. Okay, so let's look at the most important 2026 transits, which I've just touched upon. Eclipses in both Virgo and Pisces again, and new ones in Aquarius and Leo. North Node in Aquarius in your 3rd house, South Node in Leo in the 9th house, moving out of Virgo, and then Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th, moving into Leo in the 9th. Uranus in Taurus in the 6th, and Gemini in the 7th. Chiron in Aries in the 5th and Taurus in the 6th, and then lunar eclipse Virgo in the 10th and Pisces in the 4th for you. As a mutable sign, those eclipses will affect you definitely. So let's reflect on 2025. Like I said, North and South Node in Pisces and Virgo and eclipses in those houses. Neptune moved into Aries the 30th of March in the 5th house. So Neptune is quite a foggy planet. It can cast a lot of illusion and manifestation. In Aries, it makes everything more hyper individualistic. So this is when you sort of live for you. You really become quite Sagittarius. You live for you. You're more independent with your creativity. You might be a little bit more flippant with dating. You might also find that you are not only addressing issues with the inner child, but you might also find that maybe I just want to live a life of solo traveling and I don't really want a sense of family or home. It depends on who you are. Saturn also moved into Aries 30th of May as well, which will bring a bit of constriction to that 5th house. It can also get you to be very serious about creativity, maybe like art, dancing, acting as a serious career, but it can also cause some constriction with dating or expressing yourself and you feel trapped, especially because Jupiter's in the 8th house as well. It can be like, I just can't fully express myself properly. June the 9th, Jupiter moved into Cancer in the 8th house, like I said, from the 7th. And, you know, interesting as well, because like I said, Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house can expand some of the darker themes of the 8th house, but can also expand some nice abundance in the 8th house as well. It really just depends, especially on aspects as well. So that could be a bit of a flip of the dice for some of you. Then Uranus moved from Taurus into Gemini, July 7th, and that will have moved into your 7th house of committed relationships, which again gets you to be even more independent and free with relationships alongside Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So there's a lot of independence from 2025, which will be continued into 2026 as well. Okay, so let's move on to the months. I'm just basically going to quickly go down the months and show you what I think is going to be most important for you. We start the month off with January the 1st, Mercury moving into Capricorn in the 2nd house, which will allow you to communicate, maybe asking for a raise or deciding that you need to make more income with a career. Chiron moves direct in Aries, January the 2nd in that 5th house. So as I mentioned, you might find that you are dealing more, again, with the direct triggers or trauma when it comes to the 5th house of your inner child and your expression. We also have Venus moving into Aquarius in the 3rd house. Yes, New Moon in Capricorn, 2nd house. Sun in Aquarius, Mars in Aquarius, Neptune enters Aries in the 5th house as well. So I'm just being quite flippant because, like I said, I have this PDF that talks about these aspects in a little bit more detail, but also I don't think there's anything that is glaring here. Mercury and Venus moving into Pisces, a fellow mutable sign, in the 4th house of home and family. Mercury is debilitating in Pisces, so it's much better to write things down or try to show someone your love, for example, rather than saying it out loud. More creative, shall we say. Venus in Pisces is exalted, so then this actually is quite nice. Really good for making adjustments around the home or feeling a sense of harmony with your family members. And on Valentine's Day, Saturn enters Aries in the 5th house as well. So getting serious about a relationship or someone you've been dating, or maybe even the opposite, deciding that, no, there's too much delay here, or you're messing me about. There is an eclipse, which again, I'm going to talk about the eclipses later. Venus in Pisces conjunct North Node in Pisces, February the 18th in your 4th house. Very fated energy for home and family here. Could even be a possible, conception here if you're interested in that and want to do that, because it's very dreamy and like I say, it's very fated. This is also just really aligning with that sense of home. There's a warm feeling here as well. Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries, February the 20th in the 5th house. This is the ultimate creation degree. It's at 0 degrees. We've not had this in, like, I'm talking like forever, like forever now, like a really, really long time, basically. I think the date is contested. That's why I'm a bit vague about it. I have a couple of dates in my mind from what apparently it is. And the reason why is because Neptune wasn't really a planet in traditional astrology. So we have to go back in time to kind of fit where it would be. And so some people say 7000 BC was when this would have been an accurate alignment, and if so, that's the start of a civilization, really. And of course in the 5th house of creativity, but also children and birth, then this is definitely creation for you. So again, with that Venus in Pisces conjunct North Node in Pisces energy too, conception is possible. I don't do fertility readings, but it's possible. But also, if you want to create a masterpiece, you want to be, I'm going to create something new, a project, my baby, I'm going to do something really fun, this is the time to do it. In March, we do have a lunar eclipse in Virgo in your 10th house as a mutable sign, so anything from 10 to 19 degrees will affect you, but I will come to talk about that later as well. Venus moves into Aries March 6th in your 5th house, bringing some fire to dating, heightened libido and sex drive as well, and again, more of an independent, I'm going to do what I want energy as well. April, Mars moves into Aries, a domicile placement, April 9th in the 5th house, brings a lot of motivation and vitality to projects and creativity, doing lots of things around the house, for example, just having a lot of errands and agenda, but feeling very creative and artistic, feeling very expressive, and also sex drive can be a little bit higher libido, especially when Mars conjuncts Neptune in Aries. It's just a bit like really feeling the oats, but almost like delusional. Be careful of red flags in a relationship here, because Neptune Aries is like, I can't really see the issue, and then Mars is like, I just want to go for it, and it's like, yeah, but where's the logic here? So I'll be careful with that one. And then Mercury and new moon in Aries in the 5th house as well, for that new start, for that energy too. And then Mars conjunct Saturn in Aries in the 5th house is getting very serious about, you know, either a dating prospect or a creative project as well. I'm trying to give you a couple of opportunities here because I'm aware that a lot of people watching will have different backgrounds. I have people that watch me that are retired, people that are not, they're single, they've been single forever, you know, so I'm just trying to tailor it to whoever. Venus and Uranus in Gemini in the 7th house of committed relationships and contracts and commitments as well. Venus in Gemini is much more flirty. I quite like this with the 5th house energy as well, because Venus in Gemini reminds me of the talking stage of a relationship, and then in the 7th house it's like, it's very fun and it's kind of like the butterflies in your tummy energy. And then Uranus which wants to seek freedom but is kind of giving a bit of spontaneity to the whole thing, is quite enjoyable too. Okay, let's look at May. Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries May 16th in that 5th house is going to get you to address those triggers tangibly, because Mars is kind of making, is bringing a lot of energy to it, but it can also be very angry. So I would be careful of not punishing yourself or turning that anger inward, making it internal and doing something self-destructive. Mercury conjunct Uranus in Gemini in the 7th house, May 18th. Mercury obviously domicile in Gemini, really beautiful way of speaking with Uranus there as well. Uranus being an upper octave of Mercury. It's just, yeah, it works. So this is really good for being very spontaneous and expressive with your communication. And then also full moon in Sag in your 1st house of self-made 31st as well. So a release of a goal or something in your, you know, identity that feels really good for you. June, Venus conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, June the 9th in the 8th house. Venus and Jupiter both benefic here, so this will be very nice. You use this energy to manifest or to go out and do something. Great for money and investments and shared finances. Pretty good for intimacy as well, if you wanted to share a bond or you wanted to connect with somebody and be more affectionate. It's really very nice as well. Also fantastic for a rebirth that you might be wanting, especially after that full moon in Sag as well. And also a new moon in Gemini, June 15th, in the 7th house of committed relationships too. So strengthening your commitment to yourself and to others as well. And then Mars entering Gemini, which to me is a real madman energy. Of course, it's your sister sign in the 7th house. So this always feels like a, when you're in a battlefield and, there's always a strategy. There's a Mars in Virgo who's doing all the strategy. There's a Mars in Aries who's actually putting all the blood all across all the floor, and then you actually have Mars in Gemini, which is the madman that pulls his trousers down and distracts everybody. So this is quite exciting and fun in the 7th house of relationships. It's more like, it's kind of flirty and fun. And then of course Jupiter enters Leo in your 9th house of spirituality, travel, higher ways of thinking, philosophy, some more of the introspective elements of life, but in a fun, wise way, and really sees the bigger picture. In Leo, which is very dramatic, but also rules the 5th house, that rules the heart. Very passionate about your belief. You could get embroiled in something you really believe in. Could be astrology, could be a religion, it could be even yourself. It's almost like getting obsessed with something, but it's because it makes me feel better. July, Venus moves into Virgo, July the 9th in the 10th house. Really good harmony for your career, but a bit picky as well. I don't think that's actually a bad thing in the 10th house, because it can make you, it can demand more respect. Saturn retrograde in Aries in the 5th house as well. So thinking a little bit more about what Saturn's trying to teach you in that 5th house of the inner child, children, dating and creative prospects too. August, Mars enters Cancer, August 11th in the 8th house. Mars is considered to be in its fall in Cancer, so it's very crying and screaming. It's very frustrated energy in the 8th house of power struggle. You could, this is one of those things where, I'm going to cry, so just be mindful of that one as well. And of course, we have a lunar eclipse full moon in Pisces, August 28th in that 4th house. and then solar eclipse new moon in Leo, which is actually really competitive and has a lot of defensive energy there as well. So yeah, be mindful of that. September. Uranus retrograde in Gemini in the 7th house, a new moon in Virgo September 11th in the 10th house as well, a new start, especially as we get towards the 2027 as well. It seems a bit premature, but you know, as we get there as well. And a full moon in Aries releasing an energy with creativity, dating, and a, you know, fun prospect, even a child. Not releasing a child, but you know, releasing some kind of issue with a child perhaps. Especially around September, October, they start to go back to school. So it's like releasing, they might be going up to a bigger class now. October, we do have a Venus retrograde in Scorpio, October 3rd in the 12th house. And that will affect you in certain ways. Even though Scorpio is a fixed sign, it will affect you in the fact that 12th house can be easily triggered, and it's also about trying to reject material assets as well. So you might find that you're on the spiritual path now that Jupiter's in your 9th house as well. You're like, I'm going to be the monk on the mountain and reject all that energy. Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, which is very detective energy and can be very easily triggered. October might be a little bit more of a difficult one for you. Okay, November is always our month because Sun in Sagittarius, full moon in Gemini in the 7th house as well, and Mars entering Virgo, which is what I said, that strategic officer in the 10th house, really bringing discipline to your career or your self-expression or some kind of projects that you're working on. December, Mercury moves into Sag in your first house, December 6th, which is in its detriment. And then we have a new moon in Sag, first house herself, December 9th as well, which I think is going to be really lovely, new start as well. And I'm happy that we have a new moon in Sag so close to the new year as well, because I think that's just so fun and exciting. And of course, Saturn, Neptune, both direct as well in the 5th house. So it'll be easier for you when it comes to creativity and working on projects and also setting some resolutions. And then of course, we end that year as pretty much how we started 2026 with Mercury in Capricorn, December 25th in the 2nd house. Again, bringing more vitality to finances and self-worth. And again, how we're setting our resolutions for the year. So we're going to rank the months. So this is very small and insular. So January is the best month for defining what you want to do and a new financial plan. February is the best month for implementing new changes with caring for the inner child. March is the best month for acknowledging your successes, and you really do need to do this. April is the best month to be productive, like really productive, like fire-hours productive. May is the best month to go active with giving it your all. June is the best month to focus on relationships. July is the best month for taking the rose-tinted glasses off. August is the best month to travel and get creative with projects. September is the best month to focus on a bit of everything, really. October is the best month to reconsider your material desires with that Venus and Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. November is the best month to focus on releasing toxic energy for the start of December, to have those resolutions ready. And then December is actually the best month to implement that new start. And then before I move on to the eclipses, I'm going to talk about the impact of the change of nodes. So we have North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, moving to North Node in Aquarius, South Node to Leo, July 27th to March 26th, 2028. So you have a North Node in the 3rd house and a South Node in the 9th house. So your South Node is in the 9th house, which Jupiter rules, it rules Sagittarius. So that feels a little bit more towards you. And because Jupiter is in that house, it's going to expand the South Node. This is something that people need to be mindful of, is that because Jupiter is in Leo, it's expanding all the South Nodes. So that's expanding the need to release. So it feels like I really have to release it. It almost feels urgent, right? Because Jupiter will expand what it's near. It depends on the degree that where it will be, but normally Jupiter will expand it. When you have a North Node in Aquarius, just be mindful also in the birth chart, if you have North Node in Aquarius and South Node in Leo, you're having a nodal return. If you have the opposite, you're having a reverse nodal return. But generally, North Node in Aquarius is learning to work with others and learning to change the community and bring interesting ideas to the mix. South Node in Leo is where you were, it's the memories of a king. It's where you were kind of lazy and you didn't do anything. You kind of sat around and you were hedonistic, the 5th house where something like Venus rejoices, where it's kind of like, I'm going to sit there and be fed grapes and I was the king or a queen and I don't really need to do much. North Node in the 3rd is like, yes, I do have to contribute to the world. 3rd house is very productive. It's ruled by Mercury, so it's very fast. It's very detail orientated. And it's really smart and intelligent as well. It's like an academic environment. South Node in ninth is also higher education, but the South Node is more philosophical, where the North Node is like, I'm brainy, mathematical almost, right? It's still more about writing, but it's more mathematical. And then Aquarius, which is really rejoices in that kind of area of being mathematical, because it deals with technology, it deals with things like mechanics, engineering, cars, that kind of thing. AI as well. We're really working towards a utopian future here. So with that North Node, which is, some astrologers will say purpose, I'm not going to discount that, but I think it's more about the direction of travel intuitively. The North Node in the third house is going to make you feel like I really have to speak my truth. I have to, I need to work on something. It always makes me think about, as a Sagittarius stallion myself, that when people say, oh, I can't wait to get to heaven, I'm like, oh, there's so much to be done on earth. There's so much to be done on earth. There's so many people to save. There's so many people to help. There's so many things that we need to do. So in the North Node in the third, it really feels like that. And because the South Node in Leo in the ninth is more sort of like, I was Aristotle or Socrates, and I was kind of like, you know, sitting down and philosophizing about life. And then the North Node is like, well, I've got to put the work in now. So I would be mindful of that. Okay, let's move on to the eclipses. So we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius, February the 17th, and that will be in your third house. Okay, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius, February the 17th, and this is in your third house at 28 degrees, which is the third decan of Aquarius, ruled by the moon and Venus, which is a Libra triplicity. So I've been saying for all zodiac signs that this is a particular judgmental kind of eclipse. Eclipses are always quite difficult because they're very fated, and with this eclipse that's new in Aquarius, you know, we've had Pisces Virgo axis, but we haven't had the Aquarius and Leo ones just yet. This feels really new and interesting, and more sort of like, oh, we're looking at it with a lot of speculation. And solar eclipse is a supercharged new moon as well. So this is associated with the Seven of Swords, which is about plotting and being sneaky. When you have it in the third house, you're going to have to be resourceful. You're going to have to find a lot of tools. If you want to catch more fish, you've got to use more hooks. So this is thinking on your feet and trying to outsmart your opponent, quite literally in the third house, in which is a battle of words, a battle of productivity, a battle of, I can get this person on the floor. You might be dealing with a narcissistic energy here. I've had an eclipse in the third house before, and it was quite literally a power struggle when it came to communication. It was them trying to say one thing and me trying to say the other, right? So this is a testing kind of decan. It gives you tendencies that make you feel like, why is the universe doing this to me? And it really does test you. So you need to be mindful that this is going to make you feel like maybe a little bit manic in the third house, very fast as well. Brain energy is all over the place, and someone is trying to get one upon you. It feels like wrestling, basically. Like you're wrestling with somebody and they're trying to win, and you're like, you know what? In the third house, I know a narcissist when I see one, you know? So it's going to feel like that. You also have Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house, trying the North Node in Pisces in the 4th house. You also have Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house, trining the North Node in Pisces in the 4th house, so these two water signs as well. And this encourages you to be a bit more intuitive. Jupiter in Cancer expanding that 8th house of rebirth and transformation with the direction of travel of intuition, North Node in Pisces, with your home and family, definitely could be a bit of a issue with family. And the reason why I say that is because the Sun and Moon in Aquarius in the 3rd house is actually squaring Uranus and Taurus in the 6th house. So it feels like you're spreading yourself way too thin for people. You're working too hard, and it feels like, hang on, you only ever recognize me when I've done something wrong, but you won't ever recognize all the good things I've done. How is that fair? You want to break away, you want a bit of freedom. You're like, why am I putting myself on this hamster wheel? And actually, there's a sense of disinformation here, like someone's being told something that's not true, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't think that's true, right? So there's a bit of a difficult kind of energy with this eclipse, just generally. Then March the 3rd, we have a lunar eclipse full moon in Virgo in your 10th house, taking place at 12 degrees. As a mutable sign, this will affect you, so be mindful of it. Anything from 10 to 19 degrees will affect you. Even as a Sag sun or moon, it will affect you, especially as a Sag moon. This is the 2nd decan of Virgo, which is ruled by Venus and Saturn, which makes it a Capricorn triplicity. So there's a real striving sense of success here. This is actually associated with success. It's associated with the 9 of Pentacles, which is very vulnerable and open. open, but it's fantastic for putting in the hard work and really getting something from it. In your 10th house of career, validation and what you're well known for, what you're talented at, this is, say, success is an understatement here, basically. This is, I've earned this and I deserve the accolades. I can put this to bed and I can start something new. So this could be, for example, getting word that you have you've got the job and you can move from another job, or maybe, somebody's actually recognizing you and giving you the validation that you've been wanting for quite some time, especially those of you that really want to, have a conclusive energy with a father figure because of that eclipse in Virgo energy that we won't have again for quite some time. Of course, we're going to have it again, but, for a couple of years, we won't have it. And this also feels like it's too good to be true. Like, I'm waiting for the other penny to drop, but this is very positive and it's karmically about putting in the hard work and then reaping the rewards. It makes me think of the 7 of Pentacles, actually. Even though this is the 9 of Pentacles, it makes me think of the 7 of Pentacles. The Sun and Mercury in Pisces in the 4th house, trining Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th as well, bringing emotional abundance and some healing energy too. A bit of spiritual insight also leads to a positive transformation as well. And then Jupiter also sextiling the Moon and Virgo in the 10th house, which is also the expansion of Jupiter with that emotional transformation meeting the practicality of Virgo in the 10th house as well. So this is the time to enjoy and be thankful, but also be like, right, I also have to get to work right after this as well. August 12th, we have a total solar eclipse new moon in Leo. So the first kind of eclipse we get in Leo, which is like, wow. The reason why I'm always like, because Leo rules the heart. So it's always very dramatic. It's always very hedonistic. It's always very sort of like, oh my God, what's going on here? This is in your 9th house. Of course, as I mentioned before, that is what Jupiter rules. So this is your house pretty much. And this is taking place at 20 degrees in the 3rd decan. So anything from 20 to 29 degrees will impact you here with Leo. So this is associated with the 7 of Wands, very fiery energy. Of course, Leo is a fellow fire sign as well. So you might be like, yeah, I'm getting the fire lit here as well. This is about rivalry, competition. It's actually like it's kind of like trying to defend yourself from attack. It's very, assertive. I'm trying to really stand up for myself. And again, in that 9th house, it feels like you are trying to defend your ideas, especially from somebody who is trying to challenge them. You could be having, for example, if you're studying, this could be something like an exam or a viva or an oral examination. It could also be somebody that doesn't understand, you wanting to be more free or traveling more, especially with all that 5th house concentration. And, personally, with the fated energy of this, it feels like you're trying to just get through the day with as little arguments as possible. So if we look at this particular chart, we have a grand air trine. We have 2 kite formations and a grand air trine. So we have Pluto in Aquarius trining Uranus and Gemini, which is then trining Venus and Libra, which is then trining Pluto in Aquarius. And then we have that all kind of connected as well with Pluto sextiling Neptune, which then sextiles Uranus, which then trines. So again, you can see this all going back and forth, making 2 kites, but a grand air trine nonetheless. So that's going to bring a lot of logic to the situation, which with the 9th house, which is a bit more philosophical, again, it might be more like a spiritual sense of meaning against something kind of scientific. I'm being very vague there because it can mean anything, That can just be someone who's trying to dig their heels into the ground and you're not looking at it from my perspective. You're being you're too insular, right? Mars being in Cancer as well, bringing some crying, screaming energy to the whole mix. And Neptune being opposite Venus as well. So it's like I cannot see things clearly with my desires. And of course, the big sort of screw up there is that Jupiter is expanding Mercury and Leo in a 4-degree orb. Mercury and Leo is speaking with conviction. So you're like, I'm really going to defend my point to the death here. I will die on this hill, right? This ain't no disco. But also at the same time, again, Leo rules the heart. Takes everything so personally. So, this is a court case if I've saw one, it's like I'm really fighting for it, and it can be quite difficult with that 7 of Wands energy as well. Then in the same month, we have a partial lunar eclipse forming in Pisces, August 28th, in the 4th house as well. So this is taking place at 4 degrees, which is the 1st decan of Pisces. It's the last eclipse we'll have of the year and the last one in Pisces for a while as well. So we're finished with the Virgo-Pisces axis. You can see that the kite formation is no longer there. But we do have Saturn opposite Venus as well, which can cause some constriction to the sense of harmony a sense of balance as well, that could be utilized in this particular chart as well. Pisces moon is generally very sensitive. It is a fellow mutable sign. So like I said, anything from 0 to 9 degrees of Pisces are going to affect you in the 4th house, especially as a Sagittarius rising. If you're a Sagittarius sun and moon, again, check your chart. But this is quite an artistic decan. It's also quite sensitive. It's not superficial by any means. And, as a Sag, Sagittarius get a bad rep of being kind of flippant, but I'm a Sagittarius and people forget that Sag is about philosophy. We're teachers. So things aren't superficial to us, right? We do try to look for the deeper meaning. Yeah, we're like, we've got a sense of humor, of course, but we do look for the deeper meaning. So this is associated with an energy, the 8 of Cups, where you walk away from something you thought would happen. You could be, for example, a house sale falls through, or you have to give up on something to do with a house or apartment. You have to kind of cut ties with a family member. You could even be like saying goodbye to a child for them to go to college or whatever. It's generally more of a sort of, which is a bit more successful, but I would say this is more of a, I've got to walk away from it because I just can't hold on to this any longer. And it's very disappointed energy as well. So you kind of have the Leo eclipse, which is like fiery, I'm going to fight, and then this is one like, well, I'm going to just surrender and give up basically because I have to. So this is a bit more of a solemn eclipse. So overall, Sagittarius, this is a kind of mixed bag of a year. I think Jupiter moving into the 9th house is going to make you feel a lot better than 2025. It's also going to help you feel more at home and aligned to the perspective that Sagittarius brings. I think you'll be glad to see the back of the eclipses and the mutable signs as well now they're moving to fixed. Again, depending on what your chart is. So if you're watching as an Aquarius rising, then sorry, but I think that's going to be a big focus. The 5th house is going to have a big highlight for you as well with the Aries energy, and of course the North Node moving into the 3rd house as well, where you feel very productive and focused. I've seen a few astrologers say Sagittarius is going to be really lucky and real main character. I can see where they're coming from. I think Jupiter being in the 9th house can really bring some luck and energy there, but I also think with Chiron being in that 5th house and then moving into the 6th, we've got a sense of not feeling good enough. And I mean, some astrologers say Chiron's not really that big of a deal. When I've done birth chart readings, you're damn skippy, it's a big deal. So I'm not sure about that, but nonetheless, I think there's going to be a sense of freedom and traveling and being more solo. And as a Sagittarius, I can feel that, I can understand that. My Capricorn rising tries to hold me back, but I can understand that for sure. So I think I'm a little bit apprehensive to say whether it's a good or bad year, because I don't like saying that. And then because I also get people say, you tell me it's going to be a good year. And I'm like, yeah, I did say that. So I'm going to be like, I'm not going to say if it's a good or bad year. I'm going to give you the opportunities and the ideas, and then it's there. Again, if you're interested in knowing about the best strategic aspects for the year, then I have my PDF on my website, which I've kept relatively cheap, and also readings and whatnot if you're interested too. And I hope you have a generally wonderful year, Sagittarius, and I'll speak to you soon.